please, and just ask whether she's convinced.
What is it about Islam that's threatening the West to such a great extent that we feel like it's important to debate about it?
Islam is not threatening the West, absolutely. Muslims are living in peace in the West. And so there is nothing. Perfectly, Islam, as Christianity, as Judaism, as all religions, is part of the world divine revelations, and believers that are sincere and honest in practice.
So do people who use political Islam as an excuse, are they really using Islamism in the right way, or is it just to cover? Is it just to
Islamists are using Islam in the wrong way.
Okay,
and in doing so, they are.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You're going to have a brief comment. Shadi Hamid.
This is very problematic what you're seeing here. Imam Yahya, no one has the right to say this person has a correct interpretation of Islam, this person has the wrong interpretation. Only God can judge that. In the end, you have to let people express their views with full freedom. And if people want to,
that's what I'm doing. If people want to abuse, relativism.
In a democratic society, people have the right to abuse religion. In America, people have the right to abuse Christianity. People do it all the time in the U.S., and that doesn't make them a threat.
Yes,
that just means I disagree with that.
Excuse me, I'm going to exercise the right to go to a new question. Thank you very much. Lady in the second row. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Shireen Khan. I'm half Finnish, half Syrian, and I live in Denmark. Political Islam in itself is not a threat to the Western societies. We agree, I think both parties agree, that there are some, you cannot speak about political Islam as one thing. People give political Islam meaning, and people give political Islam different meanings. So I think you have to agree on one point, and that is that some forms of political Islam is a threat to the Western societies, and some forms of political Islam is not a threat to the Western societies.
So you come down in the middle of the argument. Some are a threat, some aren't. Which way are you going to vote?
Excuse me?
Which way are you going to vote? Yes.
On that side.
Okay.
Because I would always choose nuances. It's important.
It's
Maajid,
incredibly
Nawaz.
important.
Just to say that, thank you for that comment. It's because of the nuances that I oppose the banning of organizations that are Islamist but are not violent, because I recognize, as does Imam Yahya, those nuances. The point we're making is that if the only criteria for when political Islam or Islamism refuses to become or ceases becoming a threat is when they move away from Islamism as an ideology and move towards democratic and liberal values, then I think that proves our point, that if you stick to and adhere to Islamism as an ideology, the most moderate example of which advocates that women and non-Muslims cannot become heads of state, that hands need to be lopped off for theft, that people need to be stoned to death, and that people need to be lashed for drinking, and that's the most moderate example of them, then I'm saying that's a problem. Now, Shadi, you gave the Muslim Brotherhood as the most moderate example of them.
Please. I just want to bring the question, and then I'll come to this side.
Okay, I will answer shortly. I agree with you on every point you made, but you have to look at the question. Is political Islam a threat to the Western society? This is the question. And you cannot answer this question in this absolute way by saying, yes, it is. Because you will demonize a whole group of people who identify themselves as political Muslims and who are not creating a threat to the Western societies.
Absolutely. No, she's absolutely right. She's absolutely right, because this motion misleads us actually into believing that there's one entity called political Islam, which is all scary, and there's one entity called the West, and that somehow that there is no engagement, there is no nuance, there is nothing sophisticated about it. It's a blunt. This motion is a blunt instrument, and that's why we must vote against it.
We have to be careful about.
Maajid.
If we also therefore vote no, we're doing the same thing. We're saying that all those who are Islamists are not a threat, and that's the problem with this. Is that you've got to recognise there's a difference between Muslims who engage in politics, which is actually what you're advocating, and that's why I think you should be on this side, because both of you have been advocating
never on this
Muslims
lifetime am I going to be on that side, because at the end of the day,
Sarah, there's a difference between Muslims engaging in politics and an ideology called Islamism. Just because there are differences over defining communism, it doesn't mean communism doesn't exist. That's the point we're making.
All right.
This idea that Islamism existed in the 1920s.
I think we've explored this question. I'm going to move to a question in the front row. Thank you.
Yasser Qadri from America. My question is to Maajid. You seem to have no problem if somebody quotes John Locke, somebody quotes Tocqueville, somebody quotes any other political philosopher. But the day that a Muslim stands up and quotes what he believes to be the word of God and the word of the messenger of God, you seem to have a problem with that. I find that a double standard.
No, of course not. Of course not.
Come back.
May I remind you that I began this discussion saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and quoting from the Quran. And what I'm saying is that's not a problem. Muslims engaging in politics is not a problem. You are not from an Islamist organization, I know you, and you're not from an Islamist background. So of course when you engage in politics as an ethical and religious person, and you follow the standards that are set up in your country.
Sarah Joseph, very briefly, please.
That is not what this motion is about. This is about whether we have the right to self-determine. We have the right as Muslims to bring what we believe to the table, to frame our governments about what we feel we can give, that we can bring a spiritual dimension to this world. It's not about enforcement. The Quran quite states that there's no compulsion in religion, that we can bring the beauty that is Islam. You've painted an ugly picture of Muslims who want to bring something political. I want you to think of a beautiful picture. Political Islam can be whatever we want it to be, and let it be something good, and vote against this motion.
All right, and now, ladies and gentlemen, we're at that point where we're going to vote on the motion that this House believes that political Islam is a threat to the West. Let me just explain the voting machines. If you want to vote for the motion, that is the side represented by Maajid Nawaz and Imam Pallavicini, you press button 1, the yes button. If you want to vote against the motion, the side represented by Sarah Joseph and Shadi Hamid, you press button 2, the no button, and would you please press whichever button you want to press now. You only have to do that once, and through the wonders of modern science, your vote will be communicated immediately to our computers. Here we are. The vote should come up. "49% for the motion, 51% against. The motion has been narrowly defeated." Ladies and gentlemen, it just remains for me to thank our panellists who've come a long way. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you to you, the audience. The Doha Debates will be back again in a month's time. Till then, from all of us on the team, have a safe journey home. Good night. Good night.